Welcome to the land, number 3, Isaiah Thomas.
All right, the prerequisite here, bang.
It can only go up from here. We as players, we gotta do better. I mean, when they start to go on their runs, which teams is gonna do each and every game, we gotta come together. I'm tired of being traded. That's not a good thing, but I just want to be where I want to.
Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg here with Amy Campbell, and the Isaiah Thomas era in Cleveland was short.
Oh my gosh, that video cracks me up. Yeah, the Cleveland Cavaliers were very busy at the trade deadline, pulling off 3 separate deals, bringing in George Hill, Rodney Hood, Larry Nance, and Jordan Clarkson, and shipping out Isaiah Thomas, Channing Frye, Derrick Rose, Jay Crowder, Iman Shumpert, and Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's headed back to Miami. And we are joined now by the Crossover and Crossover TV's Matt Dollinger. I suppose the obvious first question here is, what are the Cavs' title hopes now that they've made all these changes?
I think it reinvigorates them a little bit. You know, we saw which direction the Cavs were headed as is. It was getting really ugly. And while things were kind of passive-aggressive with Kyrie, they were just blatantly, you know, dismissive with Isaiah. It was not going on a good course. So the fact that they're younger and more athletic, I think, gives them a chance. And more importantly, LeBron's going to be in a better mood. Some of those guys that were bumming him out, dragging him down, you saw how he celebrated after that game winner. He was ignoring Isaiah Thomas. Let's not pretend. You know, he was purposefully celebrating with C.D. Osman over Isaiah Thomas. So I think this is a good thing for the Cavs. I don't think it puts them anywhere close to the Warriors or anything, but a step in the right direction.
I'm stunned by how well the Cavs did. They looked finished, done all that stuff. The only hope was LeBron. Now, I think they're the favorites in the East again, and I'd give them, what's the phrase, a puncher's chance against the Warriors with the roster composition. They got younger, as you said. They got longer. They got more athletic. They added some shooting. And in the process, they got rid of all of their bad players and everyone who brought baggage into the locker room. Yeah. I feel like this is a huge move. These guys fit next to LeBron, and when you talk about the chemistry aspect, I think they'll fit in because they're just going to do what LeBron says.
I'm with you. You know, I'm going to give LeBron the benefit of the doubt that he can figure out new teammates, figure it out in 30 games, which is still a pretty long time, and go into the playoffs, you know, on a high note. I really think there was no way to salvage the team and season as it was. Things were just that bad on and off the court. So a bunch of new faces, that's a lesser evil. I think he can figure that out. And, you know, Kevin Love's still going to be out for a while, so those guys are really going to get a chance to play right away, and we're going to find out what they can do.
Well, even just getting that freshness in there, we knew was something that needed to happen. This locker room was toxic. And we're talking a lot about LeBron right now and how he's the one that everybody needs to please and what is he going to do. A guy we're not really talking about is Tyronn Lue. He's actually the coach of this team. Yeah. Do you think there's any pressure on him now to make this work, or is it really all on LeBron?
I like that we have to say actually the coach of the team. Like, it needs to be clear that he is. No, all the pressure's on Ty Lue. It was all on him before, too. If there's going to be a fall guy in Cleveland, it will be Ty Lue. That'll be the first guy to go. You see how it went with David Blatt. He was in first place. They still kicked him to the curb. So the pressure's going to be on Ty Lue to figure things out. But everyone in that Cavs organization feels pressure. You saw Kobe Altman felt the pressure yesterday. Swung 3 trades. So I think, you know, the fact that you've got LeBron as your centerpiece, he's going to make the chemistry work a lot quicker than a lot of other stars. And, man, you saw the Isaiah Thomas play at the end of that game winner. Things are not working when someone's calling for the ball 45 feet away from the hoop.
I think people are being totally unfair to Ty Lue. I mean, he took over for Blatt. They won the championship, right?
Yeah,
he apparently challenged LeBron in the locker room during Game 7. Yeah. And when Isaiah Thomas the other day said they're not making adjustments, Lue said that's not true, and then benched Thomas down the stretch of that game. Yeah. Maybe he was tipped off a little bit about the trade deadline, but if you're a coach, you'd much rather have these personalities in the locker room, and at the same time, you'd much rather have the versatility he now has roster-wise. He could put Nance at center. You can go small ball that way. You've got guys who can hit threes and defend in Hill and Hood now. I think his options opened up because there was nothing he could do before. They were too old. They were too slow.
And the thing we don't talk about that often, too, is that, Ty Lue was kind of a peer of a lot of guys on that team. There were a lot of guys on that Cavs team that were traded away the other day that played against Ty Lue. And I think that's got to be an awkward dynamic a little bit to take advice and take directions from a guy who used to go against. Obviously, LeBron has received that, information a little bit better. But going with a younger roster might be for the best because, like you said, Ty Lue's a good coach. LeBron's a good teammate. A lot of those other guys weren't you can't say the same thing.
We showed the video at the top, but what about the fall for Isaiah Thomas? Has there ever been a more rapid one from telling teams they're going to need to back up the Brinks truck to maybe having a minimum salary next year? I mean, where's he going to be?
It won't be a minimum salary, but no, the demise was quick. I think of Roy Hibbert a little bit. He went from like the second best center in the league to out in 3 years. And, for Isaiah, I think this kind of proved that he's a little bit of a system point guard. Like you say that about quarterbacks like Alex Smith or someone, but Isaiah Thomas has kind of proven that. In Boston, he was in the perfect system. When the offense is built around him, this guy can score 30 a night. But when he's got to share the ball with other players on the team, when he's being exposed because he's not as athletic as he was and he's dealing with a hip injury, it's a problem. So for the Lakers now, they've got to figure out, what do we want out of IT? Do we think this guy's the man and the star or the guy of our future? I don't think they think that. I think they see him as maybe a sixth man, a guy who can help out a little bit. And he's a dice roll. They're going to see what he can do for the last 30 games, and then they'll decide, is it worth keeping him? What are other teams offering? I think it made sense for them.
Well, and we did hear those reports about his agent saying he doesn't want to come off the bench in LA, Magic Johnson saying this might be a role here. So it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds there for IT. So with the Lakers and the Celtics, obviously they did a lot of business yesterday. Both of these teams seem to make moves to allow themselves to have LeBron James there in the future. The Lakers clear all that cap space, and the Cavs make moves to make their guy happy.
Right.
Who do you think made the better move to say, LeBron, this is where you should be? Who's going to convince him?
I think the Cavs made the smarter move because the Lakers cleared those 2 max contract slots, which looks good, but there's still a lot of guys in that team I'm not sure LeBron's dying to play with. The Cavs somehow managed to improve their short-term and long-term outlook. I love that they kept the Brooklyn pick. I love that they got 2 guys, and Nance and Clarkson, actually 3 in Hood too as well, where if LeBron leaves, this team still kind of makes sense. There are pieces there that you can build upon. You're not going all the way back to the bottom. So I really think the Cavs, made a coup yesterday, and maybe in a couple of weeks, and if an injury strike or something, we won't be saying the same thing. But to me, as well, the Celtics and the Raptors have played this year, I'm not convinced that they're the favorites right now. I'm taking the guy who's made the finals the last 7 years.
They got younger, and they put a bunch of guys who fit around LeBron. One thing they might be missing is the other dynamic ball handler who can create. Yeah. But sometimes I think it helps LeBron to have the ball all the time because he can never go into those modes where he's deferring a little bit. I'm with you. It's the Cavaliers here, and I don't think it's close. Before, I didn't give them almost any chance of re-signing LeBron. Now I like their chances, and certainly more than the Lakers, because the Lakers are a rebuilding project at this point. And when has it worked? When one of these teams has cleared cap space? We talk about it. We talked about it back when the Knicks had Donnie Walsh.
Right.
And the Lakers and the Knicks, they're always showing these people homemade movies on why you should come to New York or LA. But when's the last time one of them actually landed a big-time free agent?
It never works. It sounds great on paper, but the truth is you need the stars to win. If you are scrapping it all down, you still got to get lucky in the lottery. You still got to do your research. So I really like the fact that the Cavs were able to keep that Nets draft pick because now they can approach the draft a similar way they did a couple of years ago when they took Andrew Wiggins, ended up trading him for Kevin Love. I mean, they're going to have flexibility this summer now, and that's what you need to keep LeBron because you cannot get trapped. You cannot, as a franchise, you cannot just be cornered into one move or the other. This way you keep your options open.
The Cavs were so busy that we almost forgot almost no one else made trades.
Right. Yeah.
But the buyout market is expected to be heavy this year. Which buyout candidate do you think could impact a team the most?
There's a lot of good bench scorers out there that seem like they're going to be bought out. Joe Johnson and Vince Carter are 2 of them. But I think Tyreek Evans was the most surprising name not to be moved at the deadline and could end up being a pretty valuable 6th or 7th man on a team. Tyreek's a little bit like Isaiah Thomas where it doesn't make sense for him to be on the floor if he's not going to get the ball. But there are some teams that could use a little punch off the bench, and there are teams that could use an insurance policy at a minimum. So I think Tyreek Evans could be a guy that maybe ends up in Boston. Maybe him and Greg Monroe end up being, a little bit like P.J. Brown, and I think Sam Cassell a long time ago helped the Celtics down that stretch run. So maybe those will be two guys that end up being unlikely playoff X factors.
Matt, I'm excited because if it is Cavs-Warriors Part 4, it doesn't feel as miserable as it did before, and you could have the Rockets and the Warriors and the Cavs and the Celtics perhaps before then.
Yeah, we got a little surprise drama. I mean, thank you NBA gods, because we need something to talk about.
Matt Dollinger of the Crossover TV, you can catch on SI.com and Amazon as well. The Winter Olympics, you may have caught the opening ceremony already in South Korea. You might not realize it because they're actually airing it tonight. But we got the chance to sit down with Tara Lipinski on the 20th anniversary of her gold medal.
I think the biggest misconception about competitive ice skating is when, I just recently read an article of, is it a sport? Should it be considered a sport? You're wearing costumes, and is this truly a sport because it's mixed with artistry? And I think you don't realize, or a lot of people might not realize, what type of athletic ability you need to have to figure skate. Of course you want to be pretty, but that's part of what makes it so hard. You have to look pretty while you're doing these incredible, difficult jumps. I mean, when you're going up into a quad, which is 4 revolutions, you're landing on a 1/4 inch blade on 1 foot, and you're 3 times your body weight. So just like the physics behind it, I think if people ever did a little physics lesson of what goes into jumping or spinning, you'd realize, this is a sport, and it's a difficult one at that.
On February 20th, American figure skater Tara Lipinski beat Michelle Kwan to become the youngest woman in her sport to win an Olympic gold medal.
When I won, I was only 15, and I think I really was aware of the magnitude of that moment. I think a lot of people think, oh, she's so young, she doesn't know what's happening, and she doesn't feel the pressure, but all I knew was skating, and I knew what I was going to reach for with this dream. And I felt the pressure immensely and intensely, and it was terrifying to be there and have a couple minutes that could possibly change your life. So I really understood what was going on, and then when I actually won, it was a surreal moment because you've worked so many years and you remember all these days of training, and then all of a sudden it happens in a matter of of seconds, and you're like, wait, did this really happen? This is real? Like, I'm an Olympic champion? It can't be real. And that just keeps running through your mind, and it took a while for it to sink in. My relationship with Michelle Kwan, while we were actually competing against each other, it was interesting. We had this incredible rivalry that everyone was focused on, and we didn't talk much. We didn't have much interaction together because I think we wanted to focus on our skating because she was so good, and I felt that I had the goods to compete with her. But our interaction was limited, and now I saw her a couple months ago. We were on the same plane together, and she came running over and gave me a hug, and I had this moment as I've gotten older where I realized, I got in the car with my husband, I said, I have this bond with Michelle Kwan that I feel so strongly about, and I don't know how she feels, but it's, looking back, we went through this together, and really no coach, no parent, no spouse, no fan can really understand what it was like. Looking back on it, it gives us this sort of special relationship that we'll always share together. It's true, we haven't had, especially in the ladies event, a star that has taken over and has landed on the Olympic podium, and I don't think we'll have that in 2018. But what we do have is an incredible talent, Nathan Chen, in the men's event. He's beat the best in the world at this point, which is crazy. His rise is happening so fast. And, a lot of people thought, oh, maybe he'll be on the podium. And I really do believe that there is a chance, and a very, 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 very good chance that he could be on top of the podium and get that gold.
And while the NBA world was exploding on Thursday, something else pretty substantial happened. I'm not sure if you noticed, but Jimmy Garoppolo got paid. The 49ers signed their quarterback to a 5-year contract extension worth $137.5 million, $27.5 million a year, which is the highest ever. Now, this isn't too surprising. We were expecting San Fran to lock him up for the very long term, but this got us thinking, if you're planning for the next decade, which quarterbacks would you take over Jimmy Garoppolo?
I mean, we sat down and looked at every QB in the NFL. Sorry, inconsistent Marcus Mariota or above average Kirk Cousins. You just didn't make the cut. Here are the guys we actually had to think about.
All right, so we'll go with Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, that's an interesting one, Cam Newton, Jared Goff, Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott. Robin, are you taking any of these guys over Jimmy Garoppolo?
You know, I think Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson are in the same class as Garoppolo, but if it's a tie, I'm going to go with the guy who's not coming off of a major injury, so I'll take Jimmy G there. Rodgers and Newton, it's very tough. I mean, to me, Cam Newton is the best player in the NFL when he's at his best, but his style isn't going to suit him to longevity, and Rodgers is 34, coming off of major injuries as well. The one guy I definitively say I take is Russell Wilson, because he has that mobility but doesn't quite take the kind of shots like Cam Newton does, and he's proven it over the long haul.
I agree about Wilson. I disagree about Carson Wentz, though. I am a huge Carson Wentz fan. I like that he's young, like Jimmy Garoppolo, and I've heard some arguments that, well, any quarterback could do what he did there in Philly last year behind that offensive line. We saw Nick Foles can win a Super Bowl there. But Carson Wentz is the guy who got them to that #1 seed, that home field advantage, that first round bye. He's the one that did that for them, so I don't think that's a good argument. He's got a live arm. I've seen more of him than I have of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I love his leadership ability. He's got that fiery personality. I imagine that Jimmy G has those great leadership qualities if he was a Bill Belichick favorite in New England and now is the alpha guy in San Francisco, but I haven't seen that from him yet. I haven't seen much from him yet. Although I would say Wentz is probably the only one I would definitively take over, or I would definitively take over him as well as Russell Wilson, like you said.
It's just difficult for me with the injury and seeing what Foles was able to do with the Eagles.
Fair.
Of course, the Garoppolo contract also got people talking about a former 49ers quarterback again, that QB being Colin Kaepernick. It was widely pointed out that the statistical profile of Cap and Jimmy G is remarkably similar over their last 6 games. Of course, there's always context to statistics. The two players have different styles at the position, and Garoppolo did go 6-0 with the 49ers over that span, while San Fran was 1-5 over Kaepernick's last 6 starts. However, the numbers do stand out, not simply as a direct comparison, but because Garoppolo just signed the richest deal in NFL history, and Kaepernick still doesn't have a job at all. Hard to explain. Well, I guess it actually isn't.
When we know with Colin Kaepernick, it's not just about football play, or things would be different, like you said. Tim Tebow may have a chance to get himself back on the football field. Vince McMahon said he would love to have Tim Tebow in the returning XFL. Of course he would. Tebow is set to report to Mets training camp next week, and the XFL wouldn't kick off until 2020. But our Jimmy Traina did ask Tebow if he would be interested in playing, and Tebow said he has no idea. That's not until 2020, and he is super excited about baseball. That's his line, I guess. Robin, would you want to see Tebow in the XFL?
Maybe out of curiosity. I don't think over the long haul, but he'd be the perfect face for the XFL. If you were watching Vince McMahon's introductory press conference, the demographic I think he was reaching out to would eat up Tim Tebow in uniform for the XFL. But as far as wanting to see every week he's playing, that far removed from playing football, I doubt I'd actually be that interested.
I think it's a great fit. My question with Tebow is, why not? The same as we talked about with the Mets training camp earlier this year. Everywhere he goes, people show up, people tune in, people are interested, whether they love him, whether they hate him, they are going to talk about him. I think he's great for the XFL, like you said. But I'm curious. I love to see the outrageous things that happen wherever Tim Tebow goes. It's always something interesting and a great story. So why not? He's played in many different leagues. Why not add the XFL to that resume?
Well, we know he's got a better chance of making the XFL than a Major League Baseball roster. He won't be playing in the XFL, of course, this weekend, but there is some stuff to watch out for. It's time for SI Now's Weekend Drive, presented by Toyota. Let's go places. First, we head to Boston, where the Celtics will host the Cavaliers. The Cavs made a big splash at the trade deadline and revamped a good chunk of their team. Celtics point guard Kyrie Irving was asked about Cleveland's moves and had this to say.
What did you think of Cleveland's moves today?
I'm in Boston.
The Celtics have won 6 of their last 7 games, as well as their last matchup against the Cavs. Next up, we head to the Premier League for the North London Derby. Tottenham will take on Arsenal at Wembley Stadium. This is their first meeting at the National Stadium since 1993, where Arsenal won 1-0. The Gunners manager Arsene Wenger is excited for the passion that comes in this game.
So overall, it's always a game that is a bit more charged emotionally because of the importance it has for us, for the fans, for everybody around the club. But this season, I must say as well, for us, it's if you look at the table, it's as well a very important game.
Tottenham will have some trouble on their hands. Arsenal has won their last 9 games at Wembley. Lastly, we head to Pyeongchang, where the Olympics will kick off this weekend. Thousands of athletes from around the world will meet in Korea to compete. Snowboarder Shaun White is excited to get another chance at half-pipe gold after failing to do so in Sochi.
I kind of like was sitting there after Sochi and certain things. I'm like, this is what I do. It's what I feel good doing. You know, there's so much fun that happens on the mountain. Yeah, it's fun to go snowboard. It's fun to do this and that, but it's fulfillment. You know, for me, I get a positive sort of like reassurance that I'm doing something and I'm working towards something, and the feeling I get of accomplishing a trick and then using that trick to win a event, and I can stand there with the award in my hand. It's undeniably amazing feeling. So I think that's kind of like, in the end of the day, it's the most simple answer of it just feels right. So.
While